I thought by now the solar coaster would end, but it just keeps getting more and more complicated. You're only talking about racking inverters and panels, like how complicated it could be. But we've made it in the United States one of the most complicated things to do.
This is the craziest solar cycle I've ever been in, and I've never seen bigger, better projects on the table that has to get installed in the next 3 years. This is like the gold rush I've never seen in my history in solar.
The brains behind our industry are going to be figuring out how do we move into the subsequent years beyond the ITC. How do we keep our industry moving forward without the ITC?
Hey guys, are you a residential solar installer doing light commercial but wanting to scale into large C&I solar? I'm Tim Montague. I've developed over 150 megawatts of commercial solar, and I've solved the problem that you're having. You don't know what tools and technologies you need in order to successfully close 100 kW to megawatt scale projects. I've developed a commercial solar accelerator to help installers exactly like you. Just go to cleanpowerhour.com, click on strategy, and book a call today. It's totally free with no obligation. Thanks for being a listener. I really appreciate you listening to the pod. And I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. Go to Clean Power Hour and click strategy today. Thanks so much. The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 10 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more.
The clean energy industry is moving fast. The deals are getting bigger, the technology is evolving, and the stakes have never been higher. Welcome to the Clean Power Hour, the podcast for solar, storage, and microgrid professionals who want to stay ahead of it all. Each week, your host, Tim Montague, industry advisor and president of Clean Power Consulting Group, brings you unfiltered conversations with the leaders actually building the energy transition. Now, here's your host, Tim Montague.
Today on the Clean Power Hour, we're bringing you a special field dispatch from InterSolar San Diego 2026, which happened just a couple of weeks ago. It's one of the most important gatherings in our industry. I spent time on the show floor talking with 3 veterans of the solar and storage space, and I want to bring you the highlights in one episode, because here's the thing. All 3 conversations kept coming back to the same themes: FEOC compliance, the ITC phase-out, storage as a game changer, labor, American manufacturing, and the massive pipeline of projects that needs to get built in the next 3 years. We are roughly at 10% of a clean grid in the U.S., and if you believe the data, we're headed to an 80% clean grid by 2050. The road from here to there runs straight through your project pipeline, so let's get to it. My 3 guests today: Benoy Thanjan, founder and CEO of Reneu Energy and host of the Solar Maverick podcast, one of my favorite people in this space; Chris Lettman from Imperial Star Solar, one of the sharpest minds in module manufacturing and domestic content; and Dean Solon, known as the founder of Shoals, now the founder of Create Energy, a company building an entirely new ecosystem for how solar plants get built, delivered, and maintained right here in Tennessee. Let's start with what's on everybody's mind at the show. So, what is going on in the solar industry that's on everybody's minds, Chris?
Hands down, FEOC compliance. More so now than ever. That's probably the first thing that gets asked by customers, prospective customers, new customers coming up, whether here at today's event, throughout the week, I'm expecting even more. They're looking at FEOC compliance because the importance of it, so much more so now than ever before. They want to know and make sure that we are a company that is FEOC compliant. We're going to see some module manufacturers probably go away this year, or at least not be the same name they once were years before.
Yeah, it's a dynamic landscape.
It is.
Solar modules are truly commodities. They've been around for 70 years. It's a very mature industry, but you mentioned FEOC compliance, okay, foreign entities of concern. To take the full ITC, you have to find a way to FEOC-free products.
That's correct.
And the solar module being the most expensive component in a solar array is a very important piece of the CapEx. But Chris, for our listeners not familiar with Imperial Star, which isn't necessarily a household name,
No.
you are a very established company in this industry. Tell us a little bit about Imperial Star.
Yeah.
Where are you manufacturing, and what are the products that you're selling in the U.S. that are FEOC free?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been around for well over a decade now. We started out as an OEM manufacturer. We have our facility still in Indonesia, so we do manufacture modules there that are FEOC compliant modules. We have a 6 gigawatt cell factory in Africa that is up and running now. We'll have more details on that being released probably later next month. Moving over to the U.S. side of manufacturing, we have a 2 gigawatt factory in Houston, Texas, Tomball, Texas to be exact, which is about 20 miles northwest of downtown Texas. We offer the...
Downtown Dallas?
Downtown Houston, I'm
Sorry.
sorry. Downtown Houston, thank you for correcting me on that. So just outside of Houston, Texas, that is a 2 gigawatt capacity. Within that 2 gigawatt capacity, we also have domestic content modules. Breaking that down further, we have a supply agreement with Suniva. Suniva is a domestic cell manufacturer based in Norcross, Georgia, and we do have cells that we procure from them that we can offer our customers a domestic cell panel via that Suniva cell. Now, if a customer needs a different configuration where they don't necessarily need that much domestic content, we call it domestic light. So maybe they need a frame, encapsulant, junction box, maybe they need somewhere between 3% up to 11 or 12% domestic content. We can configure a module that meets that criteria, still meeting the overall percentage that they need for that certain project year. Let's say it's 2025, that's 50%. Depending on the type of project they're working on, we can help them meet that threshold.
And this is one of the reasons I love you, Chris, is because you really help my clients work through the pros and cons of domestic content, FEOC free, or non-FEOC free, because every type of panel, if you're using domestically made cells and modules, that's going to be a premium price.
Absolutely.
Versus a module made in Indonesia or Africa, which may also be FEOC free, but non-domestic content. And so you really have to compare all your options and run the numbers, and you're very good at helping EPCs and developers do that.
Yeah, and I want customers to understand, your customers, the customers that come to me and inquire, and I'm not trying to sell you a module at that point. I take the salesperson hat off and I put my teaching hat on. And what I mean by that is I want them to understand exactly what kind of module do they need, because they don't need a module that has too much domestic content if all they need is 11%. They don't need a module that has 35%, 38% domestic content if they're working on a rooftop project and they're using a microinverter and a racking solution that gets them the bulk of the domestic content, and they only need 7% derived from the module. Go with a domestic light configuration. Exactly. And that's where we have that discussion, and that becomes a teaching moment to the customer.
I want to bring in another voice on FEOC because this is just as critical in the storage space as it is in the module side. Benoy Thanjan was at the show, and we talked about exactly this.
The big thing is obviously moving U.S. manufacturing and production of storage here in the United States. That's what obviously FEOC is about, and right now most of the supply chain is coming from China. Obviously FEOC applies starting January 2026. There's only very few companies that actually could fit the FEOC requirements, not just with PV panels, like we saw with Q-Cells and their manufacturing facility in Georgia, where basically the raw materials were left at the port because they couldn't prove traceability from China. And then we're seeing that there's very few companies on the battery storage side that really could meet the FEOC.
Yeah, I think
guidance.
LG is building a factory in Michigan, a cell factory. So it is happening. I don't know if it's happening at scale. With the solar panels, we're now doing, I think, something like 50 gigawatts of manufacturing of solar panels. Now, some of it's just assembly, and the cell manufacturer is coming. It's not there. I don't know. We have maybe 10 gigawatts of cell manufacture. I don't know. Maybe you know this.
Yeah, it's probably lower than that. It's interesting because that's what I'm hearing. Like these panel manufacturers really sell if they're FEOC compliant. They talk about like how we have the cells here. We're doing not just assembly, but most of the supply chain is actually here in the U.S.
Let's talk about the ITC, the investment tax credit, because whether you're a solar installer, a developer, a module manufacturer, or a financier, the phase out of the ITC is reshaping how every deal gets structured. By 2028, it's gone for solar, unless something changes, and most of the insiders I talk to are not counting on it coming back. What other trends should solar installers and developers be aware of in our industry? We're headed into the post-ITC world. The ITC is phasing out for solar. It's extended on batteries, but it is phasing out for solar. By 2028, it's gone, unless something changes. And most insiders who I talk to don't expect the ITC to come back. But what else should solar installers know about and see coming?
Yeah, I think they should expect newer models, more dynamic models on the financial side that aren't going to be part of the ITC and everything. The brains behind our industry are going to be figuring out how do we move into the subsequent years beyond the ITC? How do we keep our industry moving forward without the ITC? I know we can do it. I know there's people out there smart enough to do it. I've worked with them before. I've met them. I know they're out there. You know them. And they're going to come up with the right tools, the financial tools, the installation tools, all the tools that we need to keep our industry moving forward.
Dean Solon has been in solar long enough to have seen every cycle, and he has a distinctive take on where we are right now. What do you think the solar industry needs most? We're moving into the post-ITC world. There is consolidation going on. This trade show is perhaps a third smaller than it was a year ago.
Yes, for sure.
And it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yes.
But the industry is going to be better off when we get through this. So what does the solar industry need that it doesn't know it needs?
First of all, it needs American manufacturing once again, which we're giving. Solution sets that aren't proprietary to this person or that person's system, right? The inverter's one set of software, the tracker's another set of software, the mowers are different, and then you're paying all these monthly recurring revenue charges, right? Because you're having to buy proprietary softwares. We're basically saying we have an open architecture of a system, and the data is yours. You have a NOC, and you want to run it with your own M crew, the data goes straight to you, and you have control of it. If you want us to help monitor, we're more than happy to help. But ultimately, we want to build you the hardware, hand it over to you, and then you don't owe us a recurring revenue fee, right? Because in publicly traded companies, recurring revenue is the business model of choice, right?
Sure.
Sell as much hardware as you can, but get to the recurring revenue, right? But that's publicly traded. I'm not publicly traded, so I want to sell you the absolute best hardware available, and then you do what you want with it. But right now, this is the craziest solar cycle I've ever been in, and I've never seen bigger, better projects on the table that has to get installed in the next 3 years. This is like the gold rush I've never seen in my history in solar. And nobody wants to acknowledge that, but literally, we could fielding calls. I need a 500 megawatt field here. I need a 700 there. I need a gig here. Everything's huge.
That's actually because of the phase out of the ITC, right? That boom.
Yes. And everybody thinks that's going away in 3 years. And listen, how many times have we listened to that story? It's always going away. A decade plus now. It's going to end in 3 years. It's going to end soon. Blah, blah, blah. And here it is.
I'm not counting on it coming back.
But if it doesn't, who cares?
Yeah.
We don't need it. The
No, we
industry
don't
doesn't
need
need
it.
it. They got to break free of that pacifier in their mouth.
If there was one word that summed up the vibe on the show floor at InterSolar 2026, it was storage. As Benoy Thanjan put it to me, storage, storage, storage. Let's dig in. Let's talk more about storage. This is a very important topic. Anyone in solar is now a storage professional as well.
Yeah.
I learned about a company called Lunar, which is a storage as a service company. They're actually entering the Illinois market as their first go-to-market. They're partnering with Signature Solar, another company I had on the show recently. James Showalter, check that interview out. But I'm a big fan of putting big batteries, whether it's paired with solar or not, on a home, right? Because then you have this dispatchable energy, you can do energy arbitrage, you have backup power. But what are your thoughts about VPP, for example? You live here part of the year in California, which is one of the more storage-friendly markets.
Definitely.
What are your thoughts about storage?
Obviously, storage, we've been talking about this for such a long time, is a game changer for intermittent power sources like solar and wind, and it's dispatchable at any time. What we're really seeing is like the big price declines that we saw with solar, with lithium-ion technologies. I think for grid resiliency, like storage makes a lot of sense, especially to help with congestion and obviously time of use. And then when you need electricity, it's faster dispatchable than like a peaking plant that takes more time. And then what we're seeing too is obviously with a lot of blackouts, weather-related events, that people are not necessarily looking at the economics when it comes to storage. They really just want to have that they don't lose peace of mind. So we're actually seeing a lot of like residential storage and solar installations in Florida, which predominantly has a lower cost of electricity than other parts of the country. Obviously Texas. California is really pushing like utility scale standalone storage through utility RFP processes. So it's interesting to see how quickly storage has ramped up.
Yeah, it's taken off in California, Texas, now in the Midwest with Illinois, New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey. The list is growing. Soon it'll be 30 states, right? It's still just a handful of states where storage really pencils. But in 5 years, it'll be 30 states, right? There's no doubt. It's so good for the grid. If you're a grid operator, right, it's a sponge. It's a sponge or a power plant instantaneously. And so for balancing the grid, it's an amazing thing, right? And if you just put a bunch of batteries, whether they're big batteries, 20 megawatt hours, or 100 megawatt hours, or small batteries, a bunch of resi 40 kilowatt hour batteries, right? Yeah. It's a both and. We're going to have utility, we're going to have DG, and it's good for the grid, it's good for the consumer and the business owner. It brings down your cost of operation. And with power prices, as you mentioned, going up, it's the only way to hedge, right? Invest in solar and storage. That's your hedge against rising power.
Oh, definitely. And obviously, it's interesting too. Rising power prices has really now been talked about by residential customers. It's being used in obviously campaigns, and meaning political campaigns. And so it's interesting how it's coming to front and center.
I love it in a way, like at the kitchen table now, people are talking about the cost of energy.
Oh, yeah.
We historically didn't do that very much, except in certain markets. The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 10 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more. One of the mega trends I keep hearing about and seeing in my own consulting work is the shift from residential solar to commercial and industrial. The residential market is feeling a serious crunch, and smart installers are pivoting to C&I. Let's hear from Benoy first.
I've been now in the solar industry for 16 or 17 years. I thought by now the solar coaster would end, but it just keeps getting more and more complicated.
Yep.
You're only talking about racking inverters and panels, like how complicated it could be. But we've made it in the United States one of the most complicated things to do. And by the way, I also think there's a huge opportunity, as you said, with residential, going to commercial and industrial. So obviously you're seeing a lot of residential companies trying to diversify their business, not only to commercial industrial, but trying other energy related, energy efficiency, maybe partnering with roofing contractors, obviously to get more work. But I'm seeing people trying to add more systems in place, more discipline on EPC. I'm seeing also interesting financing options here at InterSolar. Obviously with residential, you really only could do leases, but people are trying to come up with creative products with those leases. I know there's a company, I can't believe I'm forgetting their name, but they're actually helping residential homeowners who really still want to own the system through a home equity loan.
You think about across the U.S., the installation of solar, we're still less than 10% of grid power nationally coming from solar. We're nipping at those heels, and if you run an industrial facility or large warehouse, let's say cold storage, you can benefit from solar in pretty much any market in the U.S. But I think that C&I is a great opportunity.
It is.
And I'm curious, when it comes to C&I versus utility, do you make products for both markets?
We do, absolutely. And fortunately for us, a lot of the modules, the power bin and the physical dimensions of the modules are pretty much the same. For the most part, it just depends on which region that C&I project is being built in. But for the most part, those modules, we're making those simultaneously between a C&I configured module versus a utility type configured module, whether it's here at our Tomball, Texas facility or in Indonesia.
I want to spend some time with Dean Solon and what he's building at Create, because in all my years covering the industry, I don't think I've encountered a company with a more ambitious vision. Dean is building an entire ecosystem for the solar plant of the future. Racking, modules, inverters, balance of system, energy storage, and now automated mowing. All under one roof. All available a la carte. Why do I care about Create?
A few years ago, you wouldn't have really cared because we were a startup coming up with new ideas and new products and developing those products, getting them built, getting them listed from Intertech. And so the first couple of years of our life, we were designing, building, putting in infrastructure for the manufacturing. And then this year we come out of the gate and we've already picked up about 600 megawatts just in January alone on EBOS trackers and a bunch of other stuff. So we went from startup development phase to now launching products. It's like in the chapter book, we moved on from being the crazy startup, acting like a bunch of nutty kids in the Silicon Valley style life, to now it's here. We've got production capacity available. We have customers, and it's becoming more of a mainstream.
Most people still don't know what Create is, okay? You're building an ecosystem, you're building an entire system, soup to nuts.
Yeah.
You want to make everything that goes into a solar plant, right?
Yes.
The racking, the modules, the inverters, the EBOS,
Yes.
the batteries.
The automated mowing.
We're in the Socomec booth.
We're building
They
Socomec
make
battery
batteries.
energy storage solutions with them. We're building SMAs inverters in our factory.
Yes.
They're string inverters.
So, why do this? It sounds awfully complicated, Dean, I have to say. I like the idea of a snap-in module, and that has stuck with me since I
Yeah.
first saw you talk about that. You're building a solar module that snaps in mechanically and electrically. It's very
Yes.
unique. No more MC4.
Yes.
We love that. No more MC4.
It'll be a different version, but it'll be built into the frame of the module, and it'll mechanically and electrically lock. And right now I'm working with agencies on how to get this thing listed, because it's very unique in the solution
You mean
set.
like a listing?
UL, Intertech, or TUV.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy task because they've never seen anything like that before. So you come up with a lot of great ideas in solar, And sometimes listings of those products takes a long while because they have to come up with a protocol and a plan. And right now they're trying to figure out what that plan should look like. So right now we've launched our own Create Tracker. We have our own eBus. We have modules available, white labeled, or bring your own modules. Part of our solution set, which is the McDonald's menu board on one side and the Amazon Prime Delivery on the other. So you could click on, I want the tracker, I want the module, I want the eBus, I want the automated mowing, I want an inverter station, or I want SMA string inverters. You get to pick what you want, right? We don't force you to take what you don't want, just take the things you want.
This is one of your hallmarks also. You like to show a photo of a very unfit man who lives in his mother's basement eating hamburgers and playing video games.
Yes.
And you say, this is my target audience. Why hasn't somebody else already made solar super easy to install?
From all of the customers I'm interacting with, their biggest issue is labor, skilled labor, and people cutting the grass. So when we can make it nearly bulletproof systems for general labor to come onto that solar field and not make a mistake, it helps not only the site, but it helps keeping the labor down, the installation quicker, and the reliability goes through the roof. And it basically, for everybody involved, it gives them value, right? Because the systems we're building, we're going after the utilities and the IPPs, the people who own these sites for a very long time, and they want highly reliable. And when they pick up to call us to see if there's an issue, we pick up the phone 20 years later. We haven't closed up our shop because we were on venture capital money, and we're gone for the week. So we're basically in a consolidating market. We are bringing a different tact on how to install your solar field, and we're not forcing you to take either the full solution or you get nothing.
But you're also forming partnerships with established manufacturers like SMA and Socomec.
Yes.
What are you looking for in partners, and why Socomec, why SMA?
I've been friends with Stabley, with MC4 since 2003. I've been friends with Socomec guys since 2005 when Disconnects, right? SMA, I was building stuff for SMA back in 2008. So people I have old friendships that I trust, and they need help in the manufacturing side, I'll help establish friendships and manufacture their stuff for them. Our core is selling our solution set, and this kind of stuff is fun to do. I know it's complicated and all that, but I've been a manufacturer for 30 some years, so to me this is just more a hobby.
One last question. The Grays Robotics acquisition, why Grays? You could have acquired numerous other robotics companies. What do you see in Grays?
If you could mow grass on a solar field, that's the hardest thing to do in a solar field, is mow the grass. You got potholes, you got stumps, you got down trees, you got dead animals, you got swampy lands. If you could cut that grass and keep it in control and not run into every post, everywhere on that solar field, it's much easier to get modules mounted. It's much easier to do a bunch of other operations, O&M services, material management, material handling around the site. Mowing is the hardest thing, and all of our customers are complaining that they can't keep people on mowers cutting grass full time. The turnover rate's outrageous. Because think about it, you're sitting in a solar field, you're in snake chaps, right? You're in clothes like crazy, you got a safety jacket on, you got a helmet, it's 100 degrees and you're out there turning controls 10 hours a day plus. And you do it's a hard job, and most people don't want to do it. Yeah. And I don't care what sector of labor you come from, it's terrible across it, right? Yeah. So let's take that away and get machines to do that, and have those people doing more of the technical install where they at least can enjoy what they're doing. So that's why I bought Grays, is they're the only ones that concentrated really on mowing solar and did it pretty well. So I'm taking what they have, I've taken their IP, and I'm building next generation machines to go Steve Austin, better, faster, cheaper. But we're going to have one centralized unit that just has implements, just like a farm implement. I need to cut grass today. I need to do O&M services tomorrow. I need to do module installation the day after, and it's the same platform, same machine.
Before we wrap, I want to give some time to the boots on the ground side of development. Benoy Thanjan has a day job beyond the Solar Maverick podcast. He's actively developing projects right now in some of the most complicated markets in the country. Benoy, in our last couple minutes together, tell us about Reneu Energy. My audience is energy professionals writ large, clean energy Professionals, but I think you're a well-kept secret in many regards because you're so well known as a podcaster. People forget that you have a day job. What is that day job?
Yeah, it's a day job, and the day job never ends. Most of my company is Reneu Energy. I started the company actually in 2012. We're a solar developer and consulting firm. We're actually developing 80 megawatts of solar projects in New York and New Jersey. A lot of them is community solar in upstate New York, which is basically 5 megawatts AC on land sites. And then we're actually doing the largest solar project in Manhattan on 22 buildings with the New York Housing Authority. Wow. It's going to be the first community solar project in Manhattan. It also has a workforce development component.
Rooftop solar?
It's all rooftop, so it's on 22 buildings in Harlem with the New York Housing Authority, 2 housing developments, as I said, in Harlem. And then we
Are these high rises or low rises?
So it's not a total, it's like maybe 8 to 10 stories. Okay. So it's interesting because New York City and Manhattan is one of the most complicated places to build solar. And then also it's just extremely complicated with, for example, getting a crane. And then I'm actually working on an investment fund. I want to get out of development. Okay. I've developed now over 100 megawatts of projects. Right now is a really difficult environment to develop projects. My background's in finance, and now I have the development expertise. So we're going to raise a fund that invests in projects, early stage companies. It's interesting with the podcast, the Solar Maverick podcast being about solar and entrepreneurship. Yeah. I have a lot of early stage companies like looking for me to be on the advisor board or potentially strategic alliances and investing. So I've invested in several early stage clean energy companies as well.
Very cool. What's the scale of the fund?
So hopefully we just are starting the capital raise process. It's obviously extremely challenging time right now. It is $25 million to start off with. Okay. We do have investors interested, but let's see when we put pen to paper and they actually have to send us the check. And then obviously we're trying to figure out FEOC because what we're seeing is everyone's focused on the later stage projects that applied under 2025 and not FEOC. We ourselves are basically staying back until we understand FEOC. But I could tell you, I read the Treasury. It's really complicated. I don't know how people are going to prove that it fits FEOC, and then how much the government's actually going to enforce it. So those are like the two big question marks.
Hey guys, are you a residential solar installer doing light commercial but wanting to scale into large C&I solar? I'm Tim Montague. I've developed over 150 megawatts of commercial solar, and I've solved the problem that you're having. You don't know what tools and technologies you need in order to successfully close 100 kW to megawatt scale projects. I've developed a commercial solar accelerator to help installers exactly like you. Just go to cleanpowerhour.com, click on strategy, and book a call today. It's totally free with no obligation. Thanks for being a listener. I really appreciate you listening to the pod. And I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. Go to Clean Power Hour and click strategy today. Thanks so much. 3 guests, 3 corners of the industry, and every single conversation kept coming back to the same thing. We're at an inflection point. FEOC is real, and if you're not thinking about module and battery supply chain traceability right now, you need to start. The ITC phase out is real, and the smart money is already working on what comes next. Storage is no longer an add-on, it's the product. And C&I, if you're a residential installer who hasn't started the pivot, the time is now. There is a massive wave of projects that needs to get built over the next 3 years. Dean Solon called it the gold rush he's never seen in his career in solar. I believe him. The question is whether your company is ready to capitalize on it. A huge thank you to Benoy Thanjan, Chris Lettman, and Dean Solon for spending time with me on the show floor. These are the conversations that make this show worth doing. You can find Benoy at solarmaverickpodcast.com and reneuenergy.com. That's RENEU Energy. Find Chris at imperialstar.com and Dean Solon and team at create.energy. Find them at the solar shows or just buy Dean a cup of coffee. Check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Please tell a friend about the show. If you enjoy this content, telling a friend is the best thing you can do to help others find this content. And with that, I'll say, see you at the next trade show. I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 10 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more.